Hey guys, welcome back to Meditation for Mindfulness. Also, hey girls, I must be getting pretty sensitive if I thought of that. But anyway, hi everybody. I thought today I would do something a little bit controversial in the meditation community. So I'm going to talk about my own experience and kind of how, not day to day, but how it kind of jumped out at me. And I'm not doing this because I think it's the way it should happen, because it's slightly dramatic. And I know people are out there. I know, and I know people who are into meditation, and I've had meditation teachers and all that, and they're like, yeah, this is my experience too. But it wasn't bam, like it was just a slow burn, which is the way it should be, because it's accessible to everybody. But I wanted to share what it was like for me, because I also don't think it's good for it to be mysterious, because there's a tradition, particularly in the East, where the teacher doesn't. There's no subjective expression of what it's like, right? He or she doesn't go, it's like this, and then I feel this, and then I've done that. They let you discover it, and they sort of give you guidance, and it's all up to you. And I don't think I agree with that either. So anyway, this is what happened. So I was about 25, 22, something like that. I'm 48 now. And I was home alone, and I don't know what time it was, probably like 7 or 8 p.m. And all of a sudden I had this feeling like I was very small, like I'm going to describe it visually, but it wasn't a visual picture, but I'll describe it visually because it's kind of how it felt. So like, it was like I was above the earth, like I was way, 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 way up out there in space almost. And I was seeing myself, and again, I wasn't seeing, it was the feeling, but I was seeing myself down on earth as this little speck of meat, right? The sense, like absolute truth, that I was insignificant. I was nothing. And of course, that's very contrary, not only how I see myself, but what I expect of myself, and of course, how I perceive the world. Like nobody experiences the world like they'd be insane. But at that moment, that's how I felt, and that polarity of like, this is my life and this is who I am, and this is my world. The sudden realization that that's not true. That my perception and how I feel and what the world looks like and my entire experience of it is basically wrong, right? Like if you take it from the other perspective, right? Like, I don't know, there's 10 million or so people, 8 million people or so in the city. And, I have hopes and dreams of helping the world and getting famous and whatever, all the big fantasies that everybody usually has. Low chance that any of that's going to happen. But even if it does, in 50 years, out of the 10 or 8 million people in this city where I live, even if I have an effect, big effect, they'll be like, who? And I'll be dead. 50 years probably, right? I'll be dead. And another 50 years, family might remember me, a couple people, everybody that I'm close to will be dead. I just don't matter. That's the bottom line. So on any scale, and I had a very, very, very strong experience of that. And again, it wasn't like I'm floating in space or anything like that, but when I describe it to people, I said it was as close. It wasn't an out-of-body experience. It was not. I was still like, yep, here I am in my, bathroom, or sitting on my bed, and I'm like, something's going on. I'm freaking out. But it did. When I describe it, I'm like, out-of-body experience. Like I was floating, and like there's no way to describe it except visually. But anyway, that was the feeling. It wouldn't have lasted more than 5 minutes, maybe 2 minutes or something like that. And I was just like, oh my God, like, I don't, what the fuck? And then I distracted myself. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go watch a movie or, you know, whatever. Like it was that fast. And then I just like, I'm not going there. And after that, like, it was nothing in my life changed, right? I didn't really talk about it to anybody. It wasn't a big deal. It was just like every once in a while I would remember like, wow, I was messed up. But it would come back. I'm trying to remember the frequency, because it's over the space of 20 years, at least once a year, like some years probably 5 times. Maybe more, maybe less, I don't know, but it happened like regularly over that period of time. But I would know, I'd be like, okay, this is this weird shit coming, and I would just distract myself. But I would feel it. I'm like, okay, I know what this is. And after a while, and again, like I'm not saying this is the goal for anybody, and I know people who have like their experiences are totally more dramatic, and I'm like, you're probably insane, dude. Like, I don't know what's normal, but I do know that that it's a steady increment. But I also think this story is valuable, so I'm going to keep going. So every few years I would feel it, and I would just distract myself. And I remember one day I was in the shower, and I'm like, here it comes again. And before I distracted myself, I'm like, what's going to happen if I just let it, like, because I'm curious, right? Naturally, you're curious, like, what the hell is going on in my head? And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to wait a second. And then I'm like, okay, that's enough. And so over the years, I did that a little bit, right? Like, not to a point where I felt anxious, not for more than a few seconds, right? Because it was just, for more than that period, it was terrifying. It was like it was a potentially traumatic experience. So anyway, I don't know how long that went on, but about maybe 20 years later, it was like 40, about 40, I guess, I got a bit more into meditation. I started with transcendental meditation, which is really just, you know, you're sitting quietly and saying a mantra over and over again. It's not as spooky and it's not a big deal. So I did that for a while, and it was fine. It was good. It got me into it. You know, and that experience that I just described was, had no relation to it. It didn't. I don't know if it even crossed my mind. But then recently, I found a teacher, an app actually, which I would recommend. Now it's Waking Up by Sam Harris. So anyway, there's a lot on there, right? So different teachers and all the rest of it. And for whatever reason, I found one there that worked. And I got into it, and I started experiencing mindfulness and listening to these teachers. I'm like, hold on. That emptiness that I was feeling, that space, that spaciousness, it was vast, like it was really scary. But that spaciousness is actually what these guys are talking about. Like, there's the classic goal of Vipassana meditation is to see beyond yourself, to the point where the self kind of drops away, that perspective, and you're just experience everything directly, right? And with that comes a sense of spaciousness, which is really nice. And you do it gradually. Like, if you feel it in your room, that's a great outcome, right? It's not like you're not trying to set a bomb going off in your head, and it just doesn't. That's not how it works, and it's not going to happen that way. Because you're not me and you're not anybody else, right? You have complete control over it. And even if this is a good point actually, even if you have mental illness or like severe depression or whatever, like anxiety or like whatever you're struggling with, it's not like you're going to meditating and your head explodes. It's not going to work that way either. But anyway, I was like, okay, spaciousness, hold on. And when I started to feel that sense of experience and awareness become almost like in the air around you in the room, right? And that's what it feels like when you're really mindful. You're not looking outward, it's just kind of all there. And when I kind of grew that in my practice, I realized that it's the same shit that I felt before. The problem was that I felt it so dramatically and so all at once and at such a scale, it was too much. Like, I couldn't, That's why I distracted myself. But when I realized those two things are the same, now it's very easy for me to get mindful, because I know what that crazy shit felt like 28 years ago or 20 years ago or whatever it was. And now when I do it on purpose, it's not like it's never intense like it is, like it was originally, or like I've never had that experience again. But occasionally, anyway, what happens is that I just gradually, I know how to, okay, I know what that feels like, but it's a positive. I've had a similar positive experience like that in meditation, little by little. So now I can just kind of okay, I know what that feels like, and ding, and then I just kind of oh, there's the bird and grass, and there's, here's this drink bottle, and there's the microphone, and I'm not really thinking too much about, now more than ever, because I'm looking at a camera, but still, I'm mindful now, and I'm not too worried about what's going on in front of me. I'm just kind of aware. And when I talk about spaciousness, and when other teachers talk about space and spaciousness and spacious awareness, that's what they're talking about. So, yeah, I don't know how useful this is going to be to everybody. And again, it doesn't happen like this for most people. I know that personally from experience. And there are people out there that have the experience that happened to them was like mine was 1 and theirs was 10, right? There's, and at a certain point, I don't know what that does to you, right? The people that have 10, well, the ones that I know, and I don't know them personally, are master meditators, right? They're famous. But they say the same thing. They said it's not necessary for it to work that way. And they know people that, and I guess the real message here is that, it's meant to go like this, no matter what your experience is. And that's how it went for me too. I meditated for years before I was able to realize that, oh yeah, that freaky stuff that happened to me and what I'm doing now, I've gotten, oh yeah. And then I could bring them together. So, take your time. Don't worry about it. If it's frustrating, especially at the beginning. It was for me. It still is for me. It's great for me. It affects me positively as well. If you've got some kind of awareness bomb going off in your head, I'd love to hear from you. But yeah, do with it what you will. I hope you enjoyed this. Take it easy. Bye.